Everybody. It is the second day of April. I'm going to be attempting to read. We've had the live streams kind of stop and start a couple of times. Attempting to read poetry by Bucky Sinister, one of my favorite poets out of California. This is his book, Bookmarks. All Blacked Out and Nowhere to Go, which also contains what I think is his first book, Whiskey and Robots, both of which are excellent. So I will be reading poems from both of them. With little commentary or anything like that. What you should do is you should look up Bucky Sinister if you want to know more. You should order his books, preferably from the press, Gorski Press, which is based out of LA, or find a small bookstore to order it from online. Skip out on Amazon as a general rule, and also because right now there's a strike on and you don't want to cross picket lines. What kind of kaiju are you? All right, so poems by Bucky Sinister. I'm going to start off with a moderately shorter one because the second one I'm going to read is going to be long, but so good. This is called Black Ice and Roses. She brings me black ice and roses, drinks whiskey and coke, sipping sweet toxic soda. I can't give her what she wants, so I smile instead, chipping away sobriety with my bourbon ice pick. She won't believe me when I say her time on me is wasted. Tonight, I'm drinking with ghosts of drowned fishermen. She can't hear them belch up seawater. She can't smell the dead fish, but she knows something is wrong. She asks me what's wrong, but before I can answer, she says, "Never mind. I got a full tank of gas. Let's go somewhere and drink until we forget we were ever wrong." Later, the seat of her car is covered with heartbreak vinyl. I sit with the window down, a bottle between my legs. The end of my cigarette is a sunset for the microphone or for those with low expectations. I'm blowing smoke out the crack, feeling any words to be just as meaningful as the exhale. A lot of the books that I love in this book are a lot longer than that poem. Take the bookmark out there. So I'm going to, preface them by saying these are long and super duper worth it. This one is one of my all-time favorites by him. It's the true importance of punks versus elephants. Like an elephant going to its secret graveyard, I had returned home to the East Bay. I no longer cared about shows, records, or anyone else. I wanted a place to drink, a room to spin me to sleep at night. I wanted a place to lie down and die with dignity. The elephant graveyard, however, is a myth. Story goes that elephants have an internal clock that tells them exactly when they will die. When it's near time, an elephant heads to a secret spot in the jungle, lies down, and dies peacefully. European explorers wanted to find these spots, as there would be generations of ivory in one area. It was the big score. The reality of elephant death, it's brutal, sad, and often tragic. Question: how do you tell when there's an elephant in the pit? Answer: peanut shells on the floor. Other people make dying look easy. They drink, they shoot dope, they cross the street, and it just happens. They don't try, they don't work at it, they just do it effortlessly. They don't even want it. They get it while they're young, while badly aging alcoholics look on with jealousy. We have the word jumbo because of the elephant. Jumbo was so big, he had to have a special freight train car made for him. In those days, they walked the elephant's tail in trunk to the fairgrounds. This they did in the dead of night, so the townspeople couldn't get a free look. Jumbo was across the track when another train came along and took him down. If there's a metaphor for a train crashing into the side of an elephant, I don't know what it is. Question: how do you tell an elephant is a Nazi? Answer: white laces in his docks. Whiskey wanted me dead, and that's who I took orders from. I wanted to be a story, the guy who died in the house that Punk built. I wanted to be told in a quiet whisper, like the story, what Sammy did. I wanted to stun with frozen disbelief, like the story, Germ and the baby corpse. I wanted to elicit laughter, like the story, pranks we pulled on Hef. Whiskey, like a trickster monkey, told me I would be a story that has more endings than any other. that my story would be told in the backs of vans on long tours, that broke people on first dates on the long walk to the show, that would tell my story to kill awkward silences. The irony is, I wanted to be immortal. I just didn't want to live anymore. Story goes that no one in the circus trusted Big Charlie, the bull elephant of the Laperal Circus. Only one human, his trainer, Henry Huffman, could get near him. Henry Huffman got sick for 3 weeks. No one else dared bathe Big Charlie in his absence. On Henry's first day back, he led Big Charlie to the Wabash River for his bath. Big Charlie, driven mad by neglect, grabbed Henry Huffman and smashed his brains out against a log dock. Then, it is said, Big Charlie held Henry's body underwater to make sure he was dead. Big Charlie was shot shortly thereafter. His tusks are all that remain, on display at the Miami County Museum. Question: how do you tell when an elephant's been doing your drugs? Answer: trunk prints in the cocaine. Dead men tell no tales, and elephants never forget. I left whiskey behind like it was a piece of shit town full of rubes. Old Bet was bought at a cattle auction by Hatchalia Bailey, a farmer, in 1808. Old Bet was auctioned off as 3 tons of meat. The farmer took Old Bet back to the farm to live out her life. First the neighbors, then strangers came to take a look. The farmer realized there was more money in elephant shows than farming and took Old Bet on the road. Outside Alfred, Maine, a man who thought it was sinful to be entertained on a Sunday shot and killed Old Bet on July 24th, 1816. Question: how do you tell when elephants have been crashing at the squat? Answer: all the crusties are smashed flat. To quit whiskey, I went to little rooms where people told me stories. Hatchalia Bailey tried again. He imported Little Bert with the money he had made from Old Bet. Little Bet was the first performing elephant in the United States. She took commands, could balance on either set of legs, but Bailey made the mistake of saying her hide was so thick she was bulletproof. Some local residents of Capiche, Rhode Island, decided to test this theory. Some say there were 5 gunmen, some say there were 7, but the fact is, one bullet went through the eye and she dropped dead on the spot. Question: what's the difference between a tweaker and an elephant? Answer: the elephant will eat all your peanut butter. I'm not a story, nor will I ever be one. I live to hear them and tell them, alter them, make them. Take them across the country and show them to everyone. Stories as powerful and mysterious as a beast from a foreign land. Stories as shocking as the freak show geeks. I am not the story, just the barker. Black Diamond was such a scary bull, they cut his tusks down and put a bar across them to limit the use of his trunk. When they let him off a train, they kept him chained between 2 docile female elephants. On October 12th, 1929, it was a beautiful day in Corsicana, Texas. The train was late, and the animals had to be led to the grounds in broad daylight. Eva Speed Donahue, like many other townspeople, came out to watch the procession. She came with her plantation manager, Curly Pritchett, whom she had hired away from the world of elephant training. Black Diamond saw his estranged friend, pulled Curly towards him, and to some accounts shed a tear on his head. Upon releasing Curly, Black Diamond grabbed for Eva Speed. He knocked her about with his trunk, while others tried to subdue him and chain a third elephant to him. Black Diamond attacked Eva Speed until she was dead. The Ringling Brothers, who were days away from buying the circus, wanted to kill Black Diamond. It was suggested to dump him in the Gulf of Mexico to drown with casts of lead upon his feet. It was suggested to make nooses of chains attached to the other elephants to strangle him. 1,200 grains of cyanide tainted oranges, his favorite food, but he would not touch them. Finally, they led him outside town, chained him between 3 mesquite trees, and shot him 170 times. 2 weeks later, the stock market crashed in what was known as Black Monday. Question: Why don't elephants go to straight edge shows? Answer: they don't like getting their beer slapped out of their trunk. I live to tell stories, and that is the way stories live. Stories only die when there's no one left to tell them, when they cannot grow and change in the mind. When I die, I will no longer tell any stories. Until then, I will tell to those who will listen any story I can remember about angels with clipped wings, ships made of dreams that sink in oceans of whiskey, about heartbreak cigarettes, broke down saints, and how elephants really die. Big Mary was 5 tons of pachyderm, with rumors of the same size. Some said she'd killed 8, others said she killed 18, but these were rumors, and the truth was, she could play 25 songs on horns and hit baseballs with a bat held in her trunk. Red Eldridge, a drifter, left his job as a hotel janitor and followed the circus as an elephant trainer. Red was fearless, and the other carnies were suspicious of Big Mary, so they let him tender. This is where the story splits 3 ways. Some say Big Mary stepped on Red's head. Some say Big Mary gored him and tossed the body into a crowd. Some say Red Eldridge hit Big Mary with a stick. But in the end, Big Mary had killed a man in public, and no one wanted a circus with a 5-ton killer in town. Like other killers in that town, they decided to hang her high. They hanged Big Mary from a crane. They had to hang her twice. She was so heavy, she broke the first chain. 5,000 people came out to watch her die. They called her Murderous Mary. Later, when they were taking out her ivory, they found out she had a nasty abscess right where Red Eldridge hit her. I would have stepped on his head too. Question: how do you tell when an elephant's been reading Maximum Rock and Roll? Answer: newspaper on his trunk. When I die, I will leave behind only 1 Bustelo can of ash, and many stories stacked proudly as bones in an elephant graveyard, and just as mythical. I love that poem. I'm going to do a much, much shorter one now. 39th Street Haiku. On child's dirt bike, he wobbles home on hot night, balancing 6-pack. Yeah. So I manage a comic book store, so I'm going to read a comic book poem for you, or a comic-related poem. It's called The Other Universe of Bruce Wayne. There's an alternate universe in which Bruce Wayne is poor and I have my shit together. Without money, there's no Batman, no Batmobile, no Batcave, no utility belts, much less a cool butler and a trusted sidekick. Without Batman, there's no crime fighting, no hot vigilante action, no pensive brooding on the rooftops of Gotham. In this universe, Bruce Wayne drinks alone in his trailer home in Arkansas. Bruce has one friend: me. He calls me in the middle of the night. Hey, it's Bruce. Can you come get me? I'm feeling real low. I can tell by the sound of his voice that he's been dumped again. In this universe, Bruce Wayne ain't that lucky in love. I pull up outside his trailer in my convertible 63 Lincoln Continental. Bruce makes his way inside the car, reeking of whiskey and cigarettes. She's gone, he says. Can you stop by the store? When we get to the store, Bruce hobbles in. His knees and feet have seen better days. He's got a couple of vertebrae in his lower back that cracked and healed poorly that give him constant pain. He has chronic headaches that the VA hospital won't do anything about. They say it's psychosomatic. I buy Bruce another bottle of whiskey and go back to my place. I know that he doesn't want to talk. He just doesn't want to be alone. I turn on the TV and we watch as he drinks. We watch The Tonight Show with Lenny Bruce. Tonight's guest is Jimi Hendrix. He's plugging the album he's just cut with Miles Davis, The Kind of Blue Haze Experience. He's asleep by the time Late Night with Bill Hicks comes on. During the guest bit, when Richard Pryor's talking about the cure for multiple sclerosis, I hear Bruce talking, unawake but not rested. Bruce talks in his sleep, and I would let him. But when he starts screaming, "It's not fucking right! It's not fucking right! It's not fucking right!" I have to wake him. When he finally realizes he's awake, he instinctively moves for the whiskey. He's shaking so hard he can't pour it, so he drinks it right out of the bottle. I sit next to him and hold him close to me. "It's okay, Bruce," I reassure him. "There's another universe out there in which everyone loves you. Children read about you in comic books. Adults make movies about you, and you symbolize justice in human form." Bruce exhales loudly and looks up. "And this, in the other universe," he asks, "what are you?" "Bruce," I say. "Don't concern yourself with that." All right, we got about two more. Because these are longer, there's less poems than the last one I did, but they're also good. So this is called Elegy for the Old Punks. There's a legend in the mission. If you write your wishes really small on a piece of paper and stick it into a fresh bullet hole, all your dreams will come true. There's a hole on Mission Street where the donut shop used to be. The sign outside said, "Open 25 hours." The sign inside said, "These premises are not to be used for the buying or selling of stolen merchandise." Any time of the day or night, one could buy gold chains, bear claws, bicycle seats, eclairs, DVDs, chocolate-covered old-fashioned, CDs, buttermilk bars. Outside, old men shot craps. Crackhead magpies exchanged shiny treasure for dollar bills, and young men tried to look older. "She stole my heart," he told me. And 9 months later, she stole the rest of my shit. I came home and the place was empty. She took everything, even the food. I took a look for my stash, still there. Rolled me a joint the size of your pinky, and shortly thereafter, I came down here for some snacks. Picked out a bear claw when I spotted my 8-track on the table by the window. That was Slow Charlie selling my shit. Now, they called him Slow Charlie on account of the way he talked, not on account of the way he used a razor. I knew not to push it, that I had to shut up and buy it all back. I bought back my 8-track, my hi-fi, my record player, my color TV and the clicker, my Power Man comics, my Iceberg Slim novels. And then, would you believe it? I saw my own motherfucking heart lying there on the Formica. I said, "Slow Charlie, now, I'm cool buying this shit back, but you gotta cut me a break on this here heart now, baby. I can't pay you full price, because I know for a fact this heart is broken and stolen." Slow Charlie takes his damn time, his mouth moving slower than Christmas on a leap year. He said, "Say you got a heart that ain't been broke. I tell you to go to hell. Say you got a heart that ain't been stolen, I'll steal that shit myself." I said, "Say now, Slow Charlie, don't give me that street rap. It's true because it rhymes bullshit." Then I saw his fingers twitching like they did that night in Knapp's bar, and I said, "It's cool, baby. It's cool." But I was out of cash. I had to go home. I put the bear claw in the hole where my heart should be, but that night, every time I thought of her, I gained 4 ounces. The first month I was sober, I'd wake up like a sandbag was dropped on my gut. All I could think was whiskey, 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 whiskey. It was the liquor store or the donut shop. The donut shop was on the way to the liquor store, and it always stopped me. In the 25th hour, if you looked through a donut hole out the window, you could see across space and time. One night, I was there. I stared out the window at Mission Street. I saw GIs in the 40s cruising the Miracle Mile under the theater lights. I saw lowriders from the 70s bumper to bumper. I saw myself from 1989 walking right by. I banged on the window, started yelling out, "Bet on the A's in 4! Buy Microsoft and Walmart, and hey, dumbass, she's right in front of you. Don't think too hard. Let it happen." Right as 89 turned me around and mouthed, "What?" The 25th hour was up. When there was no more room in hell, the dead came to Hunt's. The junkies were a Sugar Jones, the young vatos looking for a break, the heartbroke drunks from the bars, Iggy and Ivy doing midnight homework. There were cops and crackheads, yuppies and bums, the cool, the trendy, and the clueless. All of us needed a donut sometime. That night, the night they gutted Hunt's, I stood outside the gaping hole thinking, where will we go? There's a hole in my heart where that donut used to be. Hunt's was a place where it was socially acceptable to cry at 4 a.m. No one ever asked me what was wrong. There were clubs I couldn't stand, bars where I didn't fit in, cafes that weren't right for me, but at Hunt's, I always fit in. I had this dream that all my ex-girlfriends formed a gang and did a drive-by on me as I was leaving the donut shop. The last thing I did before I woke up was write this poem really small on a piece of paper and stick it in my bullet hole where my heart used to be. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. I got one more poem by Bucky Sinister, and then I'm going to stop as soon as it's over and end the live feed. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't know who's watching, but hello. And the last poem I'm going to read is called Cold War Christian, and it is louder than the other poems, but I'm going to subdue it just a little bit because I'm in an apartment building, not on stage at a poetry venue. Step right up, hurry, hurry, hurry. Come see the amazing inflatable Jesus and his Cold War Mary machine. You with the face. Who, me? Yes, you. Come see the amazing inflatable Jesus. I don't want to see the Jesus. What's the matter, boy? You some kind of communist or something? What's a communist? What's a communist? Don't you know nothing? A communist is someone who doesn't believe in God. I've met a few Bible smugglers, missionaries risking imprisonment, sneaking Bibles into what was then called the Iron Curtain countries. They had odometers for eyes, prematurely gray hair, kept ulcers for pets, and could lie for Jesus while looking down the barrel of an AK-47. Boy, when the commies come, they're going to put a gun to your head and ask you to renounce your faith. And do you know what you're going to say? No. Pull the trigger. Family down the street from me adopted a Vietnamese boy in 1975. He slept under his bed for 6 months. That's what he was used to. They adopted him for God. They adopted him for country. They adopted him because they are the red, white, and crucified. Right here in the Bible, boy, the commies are going to start World War III, and they're the devil's marionettes, and they want to rid the earth of God's country. You believe in the Bible, don't you, boy? Yeah? Well, get on in there and take a look. Amazing grace for spacious skies that saved a wretch like me. For purple mountains, majesties, was blind, but now I went down to see my inflatable Jesus, wanted to touch his Ziploc wounds, wanted to see the shroud Betty Ross sewed for him, wanted to ask if they are apple pie at the Last Supper. I climbed the Washington Monument to find my inflatable Jesus. I walked on water across the Delaware River to find my inflatable Jesus. For 40 days and 40 nights, I wandered through the Library of Congress until the Warren Commission appeared unto me, and I surpassed every temptation known to Senator Joe McCarthy to find my inflatable Jesus. When I got to my promised land, when I entered my Canon, when I walked into the land flowing with milk, honey, and the American dream, I found my inflatable Jesus, but they had filled him too full of lies, and he popped